My brother tried to steal $2 million from me by faking my dad's signature. He had no idea I was 10 steps ahead of him the whole time. This is a story about greed, family betrayal, and a secret insurance policy that nobody saw coming. My name doesn't matter, but what matters is what happened after my father passed away in 2019. What started as a normal grieving process turned into one of the most insane family drama situations you could ever imagine. And the crazy part? It all revolved around money that my brother didn't even know existed. Let me take you back to where this all started. My dad was a businessman, not rich, but comfortable. He owned a small construction company in our town and worked hard his entire life to provide for our family. Me and my brother Carlos grew up in a decent house, went to good schools, and never really wanted for anything major. But here's the thing about Carlos. He always wanted more. Always. Growing up, Carlos was the golden child. 3 years older than me, better at sports, more popular, always getting attention from everyone. My parents loved both of us, but Carlos had this charm that made people gravitate toward him. I was the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background and just observed everything. When my dad got sick in 2018, everything changed. He was diagnosed with lung cancer, and the doctors gave him maybe a year to live. It was devastating for all of us. But during that time, I noticed something strange about Carlos. He started asking my dad about his finances, about his assets, about what would happen to the business. At first, I thought he was just being practical, thinking about the future. But then it became obsessive. Carlos would visit my dad in the hospital and spend hours talking about money, about the house, about bank accounts. My mom noticed it too, but she was too heartbroken to say anything. She just wanted peace during my dad's final days. My dad passed away in March of 2019. The funeral was small, just close family and friends. I remember Carlos crying at the service, giving this emotional speech about how much Dad meant to him. Everyone thought he was being a loving son, but I saw something different in his eyes. I saw calculation. 2 weeks after the funeral, Carlos called a family meeting. He said we needed to go through Dad's paperwork and figure out what assets existed. My mom was still in shock, barely able to function, so Carlos took charge. He went through everything. Bank statements, property deeds, business documents, and then he found it, a life insurance policy worth $500,000. My mom was listed as the primary beneficiary. Carlos was listed as the secondary beneficiary. I wasn't mentioned at all on that policy, and that's when I saw the look on Carlos's face change. He thought he had hit the jackpot. Over the next few months, Carlos became obsessed with that insurance policy. He kept pressuring my mom to claim it, to get the money sorted out. But my mom was in no state to deal with paperwork and legal processes. She was depressed, barely eating, just trying to survive each day. So Carlos offered to help her. He said he would handle all the paperwork, all the phone calls with the insurance company, everything. My mom, exhausted and grieving, agreed. I was living in another city at the time, working as an accountant for a small firm. I would visit every few weeks to check on my mom, but Carlos was there constantly. He had moved back into our childhood home, saying he wanted to take care of Mom, but I knew better. I knew he was positioning himself. During one of my visits, I was helping my mom organize some of Dad's things in his home office. That's when I found a letter. It was hidden in a drawer underneath a stack of old tax returns. The envelope had my name on it, written in my dad's handwriting. My heart started racing as I opened it. Inside was a letter from my dad, dated 2 months before he died. In it, he explained something that made my blood run cold. He said he had taken out a second life insurance policy, a secret one worth $2 million, and I was the sole beneficiary. He explained that he had always seen through Carlos's greed, even when Carlos was a kid. He loved Carlos, but he didn't trust him with money. He knew that if Carlos found out about a large sum of money, he would waste it or manipulate the family to get control of it. My dad wrote that he wanted me to have this policy because I was responsible, because I had always been the one who thought about the future, who saved money, who made smart decisions. He said the policy information was with his lawyer, a man named Robert Chen, who had an office downtown.
He told me not to tell anyone about it until after the first policy had been settled, just to avoid family conflict. I sat there in that office, holding that letter, and I felt a mix of emotions. Gratitude toward my dad for trusting me, sadness that he had to create this secret, and anger because I knew what this meant. Carlos was going to try something. I could feel it. I didn't tell my mom about the letter. I didn't tell Carlos. I just put it back in the drawer and acted like nothing had changed. But I contacted Robert Chen the next day. We met at his office and he confirmed everything. The policy existed, it was legitimate, and I was the beneficiary. He said my dad was very clear about keeping it secret. Robert also told me something interesting. He said my dad had specifically instructed him to watch the claim process on the first policy, the $500,000 one, because he suspected Carlos might try to manipulate it. Robert's words echoed in my head. Your father was a smart man. He saw things coming before they happened. I went back to my city but kept in close contact with Robert. And then, about 4 months after Dad's death, Robert called me with urgent news. Carlos had submitted paperwork to the insurance company for the $500,000 policy. But here's where it gets crazy. Carlos had forged documents that made it look like my mom had signed over her beneficiary rights to him. He had created fake papers showing that my mom, due to her mental state and grief, was unable to manage the claim and had legally transferred her rights to Carlos as the secondary beneficiary. The insurance company had accepted the documents initially. They were processing the claim in Carlos's name. If Robert hadn't been watching, if my dad hadn't told him to keep an eye on things, Carlos would have gotten away with it. Robert immediately contacted the insurance company and flagged the documents as potentially fraudulent. He explained that he was the family lawyer and that these documents had never been processed through his office. The insurance company froze the claim and launched an investigation. When Carlos found out that the claim had been frozen, he panicked. He called my mom, he called me, asking if we knew anything about it. He played the victim, saying the insurance company was making things difficult, that they were questioning everything. He even suggested that maybe we should get a different lawyer, someone who could push the claim through faster. My mom, confused and tired, almost agreed, but I stepped in. I flew back home that weekend. I sat down with my mom and I told her everything. I showed her the letter from Dad, I explained about the second policy, I told her what Carlos had done, how he had forged her signature, how he had tried to steal from her. At first, she didn't want to believe it. Carlos was her son. How could he do something like this? But then I showed her the documents that Robert had obtained from the insurance company. The signature on the paperwork didn't match her real signature. It was close, but not exact. Carlos had practiced it, probably traced it from other documents, but it wasn't perfect. When my mom saw that forged signature, something broke inside her. She started crying, not just from grief over Dad anymore, but from the realization that her own son had betrayed her. That night, Carlos came home. He walked into the kitchen where me and my mom were sitting. He could tell something was wrong. The atmosphere was heavy. My mom looked at him with tears in her eyes and asked him one simple question.
Did you forge my signature? I'll never forget the look on his face. First confusion, then panic, then anger. He started denying it, saying we were crazy, that he would never do something like that. He said the insurance company must have made a mistake, that he had only tried to help. But my mom cut him off. She told him to leave the house. She said she didn't want to see him until he could admit what he had done and apologize. Carlos looked at me with pure hatred. He knew I was behind this, that I had exposed him. He called me names, said I was trying to turn Mom against him, said I was the one being greedy, and then he stormed out. The next week, Robert helped my mom file a police report for fraud and forgery. The insurance company's investigation confirmed that the documents were fake. Carlos had tried to steal $500,000 from our mother by forging her signature. The case was turned over to the district attorney's office. Carlos hired a lawyer and tried to fight the charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. His own lawyer eventually advised him to take a plea deal. Carlos pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution for the legal costs the insurance company had incurred during the investigation.
My mom eventually received her $500,000 from the first policy. She used some of it to pay off the house and put the rest in a trust. As for me, I claimed the $2 million policy that Dad had left me. Robert helped me process everything legally and properly. The money was transferred to my account within 6 weeks. I didn't tell Carlos about the second policy. He found out through family gossip after he got out of prison. By that point, I had already invested most of it, bought a house, and set up a college fund for my future kids. Carlos tried to reach out to me, saying that Dad would have wanted us to share everything, that families should support each other. But I never responded. The way I saw it, Dad had made his decision. He knew who he could trust with his legacy. My mom and Carlos eventually reconciled to some degree. She's his mother, and despite everything, she still loves him. But their relationship will never be the same. As for me and Carlos, we haven't spoken in years. Maybe one day we will. Maybe not. Some betrayals are just too deep to forgive. The craziest part of this whole story is that if Carlos had just been patient, if he had just been honest and supportive during that difficult time, my mom probably would have shared her money with him anyway. But greed made him blind. It made him stupid, and in the end, he lost everything. His freedom, his family's trust, and any chance of benefiting from Dad's legacy. Dad was right about Carlos all along, and he was right to trust me with that secret policy. Sometimes parents know their children better than the children know themselves. If you want to hear more crazy family stories like this, subscribe to the channel.